Hello and welcome to another episode of Growing Up B2B. I'm your host, Delia, second generation president of Delia Associates, the place where B2B brands go to grow. Today I'm speaking with George Contos, CEO of Worldwide Metric, a second generation family leader who has spent nearly 4 decades shaping and growing the company his father started. Founded in 1970 as Worldwide Ship Repairs and later rebranded as Worldwide Metric, the company is now in its 55th year as a trusted supplier of valves, fitting, flanges, tubing, couplings, and metric products to the marine, offshore, industrial, and OEM markets. George has been with the business since he was 18, eventually taking on leadership in 2000 and guiding Worldwide Metric through both challenges and opportunities, while continuing to honor the legacy of his parents who were deeply involved in building the company. He's also the author of Growing Up Metric, a book that's a reflection on his own experiences leading and growing a multi-generational family business. George, welcome to Growing Up B2B.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome to have you here. So let's start with your early years, George. How did you first get involved in the business at 18, and what do you remember most about those early years?
When I was growing up, my dad had the office in Brooklyn, and we were living out here in New Jersey by the time I was 8. And then when I was high school, I was working, I believe, at ShopRite at the time, making minimum wage. And my dad had moved the business out to New Jersey and turned around to me one day and said, "Hey, you want to come work for me? And I'll pay you $5 an hour." And I thought I was hitting a gold mine there. So I jumped and haven't looked back since.
So just like that, that's funny. So your father founded the company, it was 1970, and your mom was also deeply involved. What lessons did you take away from watching your parents build and run the business and be involved together in that effort?
Yeah, it was, there's the good and the bad of that. And it was something that defined a lot of what my brother and I, and even my sister, decided to do afterwards, which was not allow husbands or wives to come into the business and work with us. It's hard enough being in business. It's even harder to be in a family business. And when you have that many opinions who all feel like they're the leadership, it can be a tough battle, especially when you have a father who is a captain and knew really one way down focus of command control. When your life at sea is not an easy life and everything is life or death, when you think about it out there, there's nobody to save you. So that's how he operated and taught us how to survive, really, if you think about it like that.
That's interesting that you actually established a policy that no spouses should get involved in the business. That's the
And
first time
kids,
I've heard that.
or kids for that matter. The kids, the idea there is not that they won't come in, that they have to go to college first, they have to work somewhere else first, and then they can come to talk to us at some point in time down the road. We never wanted this to be something that everybody felt was they were a shoe-in or that they would earn the right, they would by the default get the right to do what we do. They had to earn the right. And no better way than to go out there and earn their stripes out there in the world and then come back and do it here. Much
Mm.
like I did at one point.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. A lot of family businesses that have been on this show share that sentiment. Go out in the world, work, and then when you're ready, come back. I've never really heard it articulated as that's the way, that's the policy here. It's not like it's an unwritten rule. No, that's the rule. So
That's the
that's very
rule.
interesting. So I want to go back to a colorful moment in your history. In 1998, you said you were fired. You went to work for Dale Carnegie, great program, by the way, I know it well,
Yeah.
and eventually came back to Worldwide Metric, but under new terms. Can you share that story for us and how that shaped you and maybe even your leadership style?
Sure. My dad was his mentality, he was a Greek immigrant and grew up during German occupation of Greece. So he went through a hard time and economically and everything that went down during that time frame. So coming here to America was a dream for him. So at one point we weren't seeing eye to eye. And actually the day that happened, it was actually a fight with my brother, not with me. I ended up getting out by default, but he got pissed at something that happened and I don't even remember what it was, but told us both to leave. I looked at as you're fired. And my brother looked at as to leave and he went back. I didn't. And I went off to work eventually for Dale Carnegie. And my dad's whole mentality of you want to show the merit of a man or a woman for that matter is he'd say this, show me their tax return. And for him, it was about the money, not about just the money in the way we sometimes think greedy about money, but not having it and then to earn it in America was a dream for him. So that was what he based a lot of things on. When I worked for Dale Carnegie, excuse me, I was on a draw commission, and the first 3 months my draw went down. By the fourth month, I literally made $0. So I hit what I would call rock bottom, certainly financially. And then worked really hard. And within 2 years, I was in the top 250 out of 1,500 sales reps in the Dale Carnegie universe. And I come back to my dad and I showed him my tax return in my second year, which showed him that I was making more money than I was making for him the last year I worked for him. And in that time frame, him and my brother sat me down and said, "Hey, do you want to come back to work for the company?" And I said, "On the one condition, you have to let me run it the way I want to run it, and you need to step aside." And I think reluctantly he agreed, but I think he was also like, okay, let's see what this kid's got up his sleeve. He didn't completely relinquish the reins, obviously. Took a little time to pry him off of his hands, but he did give me the authority. I turned into CEO at that time, and we haven't looked back since. And we inherited a $3 million company at the time, and I've grown it to $25 million this year. It's
Wow.
been on a
Wow.
growth spurt ever since.
My goodness. Wow. So I'm just trying to imagine what it was like to work with, and as you cited, for very good and understood reason, but such a strong personality, such a way of doing things that your dad had wired in his DNA. How did that conversation go? Was it cordial? Was it more about who's got more strength in this conversation in this fight, or was it really just you happen to hit the time where he was open-minded to this change?
Interestingly enough, one of the things that made my dad unique was that he was always open-minded. And in hindsight, when I look back on our life together, there was a lot of times where in the moment I wasn't happy. I wasn't seeing what I could see today reflectively. And in that time, he was very calm, cool, collected. It was a matter of a brief conversation, as brief as the last 2 minutes of our conversation, and it was done. The deal was done, and it was over, and we started moving forward, and that's how it went down. And
Wow.
it was, did that really just happen?
That's funny. So that was around 2000. Was that around 2000 when that all took
Yeah,
place?
2000,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. That's when you came back, became CEO. So at that time, what were some of the changes that you felt were really important to make to move the company forward?
That's an interesting question because it's something that I've been a part of other, not boards, but have a lot of people I know in business and stuff like that. And it's the one thing that I always found very common in many people's struggles in business. And it was ours at that time too, which was receivables and getting the cash in. And it's something that inheriting was a legacy business here. My dad, being the entrepreneur, had a lot of old time customers. And the day of 30-day terms, that wasn't what he dealt with back then. He was dealing with 120s and more and
Mm,
just outstanding receivables that, but then the year when it came time to have a little extra cash and a bonus or something like that, we would have to wait till, I would always joke that we'd have to wait till March before we could cash the check. And I was, where's the money? Where's the money? And started digging around and that's where I talk about learning your business. I understood where it was. It was in our customers' receivables right there. So I started to create policies that were a little more strict, a little more stringent, a little more tougher. Giving credit was a process now, and getting collections was a process now. And we hired a person, which we never had, to just do that job. And I had legacy customers. "Oh, I knew your dad back then." This is 30 some odd years later, I still get customers who will use that on me. "Oh, I knew your dad back in the day." I'm like, really? Great. So did I. Bill comes due here. You go to the supermarket, you pay on checkout. And I joke about it now, but that was one of the one things that we really turned everything around because cash flow is oxygen. Without it, business dies. And that was something that I realized because we didn't carry debt. We didn't own the bank money. We had nothing like that. It was self-driven the whole time. So in order to survive, we had to figure out how to get that cash.
yeah,
And that was everything changed from that day forward. Still to
that's
this day,
awesome.
we follow the same policies. Nothing's
That's
changed.
terrific. Yeah. And for the benefit of our listeners, we're not talking about $3 and $5 items here that you're moving. These are some big
It can be expensive, sure. Yeah.
some big numbers that are outstanding. And when you stretch that to 120 days, yeah, that's really stretching you from a cash flow position in an unhealthy way where it didn't have to be. And that was, and it sounds like you might have gotten some grumbling, but by and large, you were making a reasonable case. And it sounds like most of the customers were giving you a reasonable response.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was surprisingly went better than I would have ever expected it to. And the
Mhm.
few that were the outliers that grumbled, they came around eventually. With a business like ours, which is driven based on inventory, it requires a lot of capital to keep the inventory levels up, to keep up with supply for demand.
Yeah,
It was a necessity without going to the banks and doing all that, which we never had to do, thankfully.
that's great. That's great. So it sounds like in that first year alone, you put forth some policies that sustaining policies, and they really became some really good guide rails for the company's current and future.
Yep.
And you just hit a really great milestone,
Yeah.
55th year.
Yep.
So obviously, your return was definitely a defining moment, I would say. But along that journey, George, could you think of or share another defining moment in that history that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, interesting enough, it was around 2008. Two things happened right around that time. We were had our office in Somerset, and we had been looking for a couple of years now to buy our own building
Yeah.
and needed more space. So we were shopping these kind of facilities. A standalone 25,000 square foot facility was not a very common thing. There was more the condominium style shared
Yeah.
buildings, and that's what we were in. And we were trying to find our own. We wanted to own something. Spending a lot of time shopping. At one point, my mother went to the municipal building in Branchburg and went there and said, "Hey, I'm looking for this kind of size buildings. Can you show me what might be available and who owns them?" And she ended up getting a couple names, wrote a few letters, and lo and behold, the gentleman who owned this particular building, which was one that we drove by for years, always said, "We should own a building like that. What ever should be there like that?" And he called me one day. I came, showed up here, and literally we, on a handshake, made a deal, closed 30 days later, and we got this beautiful facility that we're in today. So kudos to my mom for thinking out of the box to help us
Yeah.
find something. And it
Yeah.
was interesting because we never told my dad. And on Easter Sunday, we had gotten the keys to the building because we closed right before Easter. And I said, "Hey, Dad, I want to show you something." So we jumped in the car and drove down here. We're pulling in here, and my dad had a Greek deep voice. He was like, "What the hell are we doing here?" And we pulled in, and I go up to the door, and I got the keys, and he's like perplexed. And I opened it up, and I walked in, and I said, "We own this now." And he was so surprised. I don't even remember what words he said. He just walked around looking like, "How did this happen? How did you do this under my nose even?" And it was a real
Funny.
great moment for us because I think for him to see his two young men, and his daughter wasn't there at the time, my sister was down in Florida, but his two young men basically be able to do something like this and have the funds to do it and everything it was definitely a really great feeling for everybody, I think, all around. And it's been
Oh.
nothing but great since
And that was in 2008, you said?
2008.
An interesting year to be making a transaction like that in the
Yeah.
middle of that was really in the heart of the Great Recession, right? That was
Yeah.
but being opportunistic even in the face of some economic uncertainty. It
Yeah.
took some guts. And
I always joke that we're recession resilient just because what we sell is a need, not a want.
Mhm.
And it seems to be that it's been consistent through all these years, even through COVID, which I guess we'll talk about at some point, but we're strong through that too.
Awesome. Awesome. And you mentioned your brother, you mentioned your sister. So your brother always involved. It sounds like your sister came so all three of you are currently active in the business.
Yeah.
So how does that work, George? Share that how you divide responsibilities across the three of you, and perhaps if you could comment on how that dynamic has evolved.
Yeah. My sister had come back to New Jersey in somewhere early 2000s. She was going to school down in Florida, and she joined the sales part of the team. My brother and I were in the sales pit. So at that time, my brother was more a little more on the operational side. I was doing a little more of the outside sales and some of the marketing. We really didn't have a marketing department at the time.
Mhm.
I do sales all day in the sales pit, as I call it, and then do marketing at night. And my sister was doing sales with us too, inside sales basically.
Mhm.
And as the company started to evolve and grow, Theo took on more of the operational side of things. So he handles the operations, he understands purchasing and the accounting side, and I do more of the sales and marketing. So the way
Mhm.
I always say that I make the money, my brother spends the money. My sister stayed in a sales capacity, and then in 2004, when we decided to open up our Florida branch, she threw her hat in a ring right away and was off to Florida and hasn't looked back. So she runs our Florida branch, and
Nice.
she lives there now still today.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. And along the way, at some point, you wrote a book, Growing Up
Yeah.
Metric,
Yes.
which is a great title, by the way. So, just what inspired you to write it, and what message did you hope that it leaves for other family business leaders that might read it?
So before I went to Dale Carnegie back in 2000, 1998, earlier years now, back when I was 19, I had discovered personal development, which back then it was a very new element to even think about. And it was Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field was my first audiobook I ever got. And then I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I read Dale Carnegie's good book at that time, Think How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I was fascinated by personal development and I was all for that. Finding my way to Dale Carnegie was probably no real surprise. It was probably maybe what I was meant to do. But it's something that I've carried on throughout my whole career with this company, my life is personal development, reading books, audiobooks, training, development, working with my team to do all those kinds of things too. So that's been something I've always been doing. And at one point I thought I probably could write a book. And I remember when I was in my late 20s, I had created an outline and I looked at the outline as I was about to try to start writing and I realized like I didn't have stories. Or at least I didn't have enough stories. I didn't have enough good stories. So I shelved the idea. And then it was around 2015 or 14, a good friend of mine and mentor of mine, Vern Harnish, said, George, because we talked a lot, and he said, you should write a book. And I said, I've been thinking about it for a while. So I worked with a publisher, and we got through the book by 2016. Growing Up Metric was born, if you will. And the message there is basically that history of growth and learning the things that I learned, taking on the businesses I did from the cash, from the people, from just personal development and developing the teams and training and all the pitfalls that businesses have to navigate through. So for me, it was a navigation book, if you will, that I wrote. I don't know if I wrote it initially with that intention. The stories just came out, and that's what the end result ended up being. Just wanted to write something. I wanted to get my thoughts out and thought I had something to share. So that's how it came about.
Awesome. And you got a good colleague and friend in Vern Harnish.
Yeah.
Known him for a long time. Good
Yeah.
guy.
Great guy.
That's cool. So today, Worldwide Metric operates, it sounds like it's broadened its scope of focus. So there's always been marine, but and offshore, but now also some industrial, some OEM. How do you, as the company has grown, George, maybe diversified in terms of market sectors and industries served, how do you balance servicing that broadening array of customers?
Systems, processes don't really change depending on the clients or anything.
Okay.
So that stayed the same. The products didn't really change. They just evolved and grew, broadening in some areas. It was interesting too, because born in the maritime segment, those other segments found us because our website became the cornerstone of our marketing. So I drove everything marketing wise to have people find us via the web. And during those early decades of the internet, that's what you did. And that's what I did. And I could have never thought that I would have found the industries that we currently do business with today with a strategic marketing plan because I didn't know who used our product. So they found us, luckily enough for us. And the use of metric components and the foreign investments of industry into our country has grown over the last 50 years from the automobile industry, technology, you name it. Every industry, steel and everybody else have come to the United States to plant their seed, if you will, of business here. And they brought their equipment. They brought their stuff over here. And guess what? All that's metric. And more, we're finding that we continue to grow because it's still growing in that capacity. There's still more of those machines and equipment that require these replacement parts. We're in the replacement business. We don't do a whole lot of new build projects. We're mostly in the replacement side. So we're there to support them aftermarket. And they keep finding us, and that's how we keep growing. So the balance there is we just do what we do consistently, and the customers just keep lining up to serve them. So it's really how it works. It's as simple as that and as complex as that.
Of course. And it sounds irrespective of the industry sector, your offerings are your offerings, and it doesn't sound like you had to change or adapt to service one sector versus another.
More or less.
Oh, that's great. That's great. We touched on it briefly, but I'd like you to maybe expound on it. We talked about 2008 being a tough year and a very challenging economic year. And that's when you made the big step to, let's say, hey, let's buy this dream facility. Let's talk about another chapter that was challenging for a lot of businesses, and that would be the COVID era. What did that look like at Worldwide Metric, and how did you navigate that period in our history?
Yeah, that was on the heels of even the legacies changing in our past. Both my mom and my dad passed in 2017 and 18.
Mm,
So 2019 was a recovery year for the three of us.
sure.
Felt like we were floating, but not
Yeah.
really sure if our feet were touching the ground and
Mm,
just getting our bearings. The idea of freedom or anything like that and not having somebody to lean on or fall back on was new.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden COVID hit. And not only that, our biggest segment of our business, cruise lines, was the poster child for COVID. So we had an immediate impact of cruise just going south right away,
Mm,
almost to a standstill. Business-wise, we were operational because we were considered necessary.
mm,
So we were operational and moving forward. I had people never thought we could work from home. All of a sudden, three-quarters, if not most of my staff was working from home, except for the warehouses, the warehouse part of the business. So yeah, we navigated through that. And fortunately, or we had to furlough, I think it was about 14 people out of the 50 we had at the time. And inside of that same year in 2020, by the end of 2020, beginning of 21, I think we hired back almost everybody. And I think by 21, we had actually paid everybody in full and bonused everybody in full and got everybody caught up because we bounced right back by 21. And by
wow.
22, we were full blast. Cruise was back to being full blast and everything. So it was a weird time. In a way, it was a blessing because it gave everybody a little sense of reprieve because we were busting at the seams and working really hard up through 2019, even with my parents having that situation. It gave us a chance to take a breath, actually. So in a way, it was a blessing because we were able to just navigate that and reset a lot of things. And now it's been great moving forward from that, thankfully.
Yeah, yeah. And that one was unexpected. That,
Completely.
of all the things that you might expect as a business leader, you don't expect the pandemic to kind of shut down, forget about a country or region, but how about the world? So
Yeah.
that was weird.
The good thing when I say we're recession resilient was even during that time because we're in the replacement side, there was a lot of not there wasn't a lot of new stuff that was being done, but everybody was maintaining things. And it
Sure.
looked like they were spending some money in doing that. So even though
Yeah.
a good chunk of my business went down 20-25%, the rest of it stayed up pretty firm and consistent. So thank God we were able to do that. So
Mm.
it's been good.
Awesome. Awesome. A competitive global marketplace that you play in, and I'm sure Worldwide Metric isn't the only one that's servicing these industries with these components.
Sure.
So, from a brand perspective, what do you think really sets Worldwide Metric apart from the others?
I think that's a great question. I get asked that a lot. And I think it ultimately comes down to our people. You can't choose your parents when you're born.
Mhm.
They say you can choose your friends in life. And I think we've made tremendous strides in how we select our people to join our culture because it is a family business. A lot of my competitors might have been bought out and now they're part of some corporate muckety mucks and the way those operate. We're still family owned and operated. So
Mhm.
our ability to make decisions and change and pivot is fundamental to us. But our staff, it's our people, I think that
Mhm.
really make the difference. I give them a lot of autonomy. We train them and develop them so they can make decisions and they can work with clients and whatever they can do in the moment that they can take care of for them. And I think that just comes across just how hands-on everybody is to get the job done right and do it well. I can't speak for everybody else and how they run their business in my competition, but I hear it time and time again, just how friendly we are, how prompt we are. We're very quick in response. And that's the most important thing is speed for us and the speed of response because no one wants to wait, especially in this Amazonish environment we've had for the last 10, 15 years. We've taken that same sort of stride and mentality towards servicing our customers, but we've always had that sort of
Mhm.
mentality. And I guess those are the real true differentiating factors because all else is pretty much the same product wise. Building is a building.
Yeah.
UPS is still UPS. They got to transport the goods.
Yeah.
Computer systems, it's nothing much different about the makeup of most companies like that.
Understood. So, as you look out to what's going on in the here and now today, in your industry and maybe in the industries you serve, what are some of the innovations or trends that you're really excited about right now?
Without a doubt, is AI.
Okay.
ChatGPT is my best friend. I talk to him or her. I haven't defined him or her yet, but I use it constantly. It's on my phone, it's on my computer. I'm constantly challenging the responses I get. And the way I look at it, it's a tool, and people have been saying that AI is going to replace jobs. And I tell my team all the time, it's not AI that's going to change, is going to take a job. It's the people who effectively use AI are going to take the jobs from the people who effectively don't. And that's what people have to understand is that it's just a tool. It still needs your input to drive whatever you want to gain out of it. So there's literally nothing you can put in there that it can at least give you a better idea, an alternative idea. You challenge it and push it. So it's been a great reflective tool for me to challenge even ideas that I have and give me insight into things that I maybe just wasn't aware of. We all have blind spots and we just don't realize it because most people aren't willing to challenge someone like me in my position, whom I subordinate to me, to challenge me like that. ChatGPT does not care. And it will say and think and do whatever I ask it and challenge me back even too. So it's been a wonderful tool and it's definitely a game changer. Definitely a game changer.
Excellent, excellent. And if you want to get a little laugh, you can listen back to an earlier episode. I actually interviewed Maya, who is a conversational AI bot. She was a guest on the show.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Or I should say it was a guest on the show, but
Yes.
she is not really, she just has
Yeah.
a female voice.
I got you. I got you.
Is your team, and I think that's a great message, and I love the way you framed it. Do you see your team adopting that in practice? Do you see AI not only in terms of collaboration and communications, but also in other facets of the business, whether it be operations or managing supply chain or the customer experience? Are you starting to see that show up in other areas in the company at this point?
We're training with it. We're teaching people to utilize it. We're moving to a new ERP platform in the next 15 days. It has an AI component built into it as well. These are all functional things that they're not using it as much as I do per se. A few people have adopted it more, but it's funny when I see an email come back to me and I see that they actually use it. I'm like, good, you're using it. Now make these changes and you'll be good. That you've got to weed out some of the AI nuances and stuff. But yeah, they're embracing it. They're realizing how effective it is, how much easier it makes certain things, especially on the marketing side. But not even that, from financial to any kind of question. I plugged in an entire contract into AI and had it synoptize and find all the not fairness ideas that were against me and come up with better ideas that I could push back. And came up with a nice 10-point bullet point, wrote the nice email. I tweaked a few things. And now my customer is, oh, sure, we'll make those changes for you, George. And I'm like, that actually worked. So it surprises me sometimes. I say try everything with it because there's nothing it won't analyze, look at, give you some sort of feedback response. And maybe there's one idea, one little tiny tidbit of an idea that can make all the difference in the world from getting a response, getting an order, getting whatever it is you want done with the tool. So it's
Yeah,
exciting,
yeah.
very exciting.
And needless to say, we've been probably earlier adopters and users of AI for obviously business, but even the mundane, like even I had an MRI and it came back the results and it was all in medical tech speak.
Yep.
So I imaged it and I put it, I said, what does this mean? And I said, oh, okay, that's what that means. Okay, good.
I did the same thing for some torn ligaments in an ankle that I did last year and how to recover. It gave me a workout program too. So there's nothing you can't touch.
Yeah,
I highly recommend it.
it's a great tool. And as you framed it, a great collaborative tool.
Yes, exactly.
And as I always caution users, trust and verify, because every now and again it likes to make stuff up.
Sure.
But as long as you know what you're dealing with and you trust and verify,
Yeah,
you'd be okay.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So looking back now, span of your career, what would you cite as maybe the most rewarding part of leading Worldwide Metric?
The most rewarding part of leading the company, I think, has been the growth that I wasn't sure we were able to do, but having faith that we would find a way, that was extremely rewarding. It's been rewarding that I've got people around me that have been now with my company 25 years, 20 years, 15 years, and all the way down to newbies. And we're doing it together, and they're still with me right by our side. They're part of my family, and that's how I look at them. I think that's how they feel too. So for me, that has been probably the most rewarding thing. And then second to that is all the wonderful people that I've gotten to meet, from customers to vendors and to people like you that we've had our paths cross several times. And it's just been, I've always enjoyed interactions with people. That's always been a big thing for me. I'm a people person. So that my journey and meeting all these people and knowing so many. So when I go to a trade show, my staff always laughs when we're at the trade shows. George, how the hell do you know everybody here? And between between me and a few other guys, we do know pretty much everybody there. And it's been when you're around something long enough, it just either you know everybody or you're just getting old and everybody remembers you like that. But then you come across a young guy who's like, who's this guy? Okay. So that to me has been the fun part of my journey is I call my European brothers and sisters of people I know in business that are over in Europe. And that's who they are to me these days. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, that's awesome. And let me ask you the flip side of that. What would you say if you look back, what's been the most challenging part of leading Worldwide Metric?
The most challenging thing, good people come and go, and you never walk to see them leave in the company. But I always realize and I always think to myself, like, they're also on their journey, and I have to be cognizant of that and supportive of that and wish them well on their journey forward. A lot of times it's the grass is greener on this side, and we all know that's not necessarily true. But for them, they have to explore that. They have to
Sure.
venture out from away from us. And I've had many people come back and say, "Oh, George, should have stayed." And I'm like, "No, it was right that you went. You had to go and do this. And this wouldn't have happened if that didn't happen." So even though that's a challenge in the moment, it's also a blessing on the flip side of that. I never feel bad about that. Initially, I do. I don't like to have that happen, but I always realize to say, this happened for a reason, and I have to let them go and not fight for them to stay because of whatever situation I think we might be in. But it's the most important thing is to realize when it's time. And
Yeah.
either they know it or we know it, and for all good reasons. So that's probably one of the most challenging things next to the bloody tariffs we have to deal with today, which is a whole nother level of things that we have to deal with. But I'd say that's been the journey for me so far.
Awesome. Awesome said. So in addition to AI, as you look to the future, Worldwide Metric, and you cast out 3 years, 5 years, talk about the future. What's exciting about the future? What do you see? What might be coming next?
Yeah, I think the future is great. I think we as a society are living at the most economically robust time, even though it might seem daunting and things like that. As a species, I think we're living in the most incredible time of the history of the people and this world. And I think there's a lot of naysayers out there that talk poorly about a lot of different things and the end of the world and that kind of stuff. And I kind of tune all that kind of stuff out. And I'm a very optimistic, positive, focused person. I just think it's wonderful what we get to do in this life. I got three kids, 20, 18, and 17. So watching them grow up, becoming young men and women, and their journey into life in the world, things like that. And watching my own staff and their journeys with their families. Some of them
Hmm.
have new kids and they're just moms and dads for the first time. So, you know, the business is the business. I always look at it like this. Business is like a rubber ball, and when it drops, it bounces right back. It's the relationships in your life are like a glass ball. When they drop, that's when they crack or they break. So for me, business will go on with or without me, one way or another. It's the relationships for me that are the most important part, and not just my own family, the extended family. And when I say extended, it goes out in every direction of any person I know. I consider part of my family, if you will. So for me, that's what the future is, and continuing everything that we've been doing and doing more of it. Enjoying the ride is what I get to look forward to and be present in the moment of everything that's going on. I don't try to overthink the future, and I don't spend a whole lot of time in the past. Everything for me is about what's happening right now here today, what we're doing right now in this call. That's what's important to me. And then whatever I'll do next is important to me then. And that's just how I live my day to day in my life every day.
Awesome. Awesome. So, last question. For any listeners that want to connect and learn more about you or learn more about Worldwide Metric, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Certainly, email or phone call is fine. My email is george@worldwidemetric.com. The number here at our business, 732-247-2300, or just go to our website, which certainly is the way to go, is worldwidemetric, singular.com. And that's the way to find us or find me.
Awesome. Awesome. George, thank you for joining us today on Growing Up B2B. Your story shows the grit, persistence, and evolution that comes with taking a family business into the second generation and well beyond. We've been speaking with George Contos of Worldwide Metric. I'm your host, Ed Delia, and this is Growing Up B2B. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. George, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Ed. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into Growing Up B2B. To explore more episodes and insights, visit podcast.delianet.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. Having worked with hundreds of family-led businesses across my career, and being a second-generation leader myself, I'm on a mission to help every family business I meet achieve next-level growth for their organization. So feel free also to connect with me on LinkedIn and let's support each other. You can also find out more about my company at delianet.com. Again, I'm your host, Ed Delia, and thanks so much for joining us today. Take care.